Hello guys and welcome to the Improvement Season podcast, Revive Stronger, with me, Pascal Floor, and my buddy on the other side, Steve Hall. It's that time again. It feels for me like it's been such a long time since we've recorded an episode, because the last week's episode we recorded 2 weeks ago. So it feels like we haven't spoken with each other for quite a long time. So Steve, I'm happy that you're here. Say hello to the guys and to the audience out there.
Hello to the guys. I've got to use it at some point.
You were just waiting, since 50 episodes, you've been waiting desperately to actually do something like that. So yeah, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Anyone watching on YouTube, I've worn my fancy new shirt that I bought. It's funny actually, you're in off-season and in the improvement season and growing when I'm actually growing out of old clothes now, which is really exciting, to be honest, because throughout my last off-season, I didn't really grow out of anything. So it's really cool. I'm really excited.
You look, by the way, just to put it in there, if the people don't follow you on Instagram, which I am quite certain that nearly everyone does who listens to the Improvement Season podcast. Yeah, but if the people don't, they should definitely go over to Instagram and follow you there, because you look massive and you are weighing 182 right now and still got some chest striations, shoulder striations and stuff like that. And yeah, I hate you.
And you hate me because this shirt is just so fucking fly.
Yeah, this shirt is fucking great. I mean, come on.
So, no, all good here. Charlotte is away because she was in Dublin for St. Patrick's, getting absolutely smashed, no doubt.
And what about you?
Well, what was I doing last night? I was watching Dragon Ball Z Super, which is kind of frustrating because you have to have subtitles, and so I have to watch the screen the whole time.
No.
Wait, have you got it?
Yeah, I found a stream where it's English dubs already.
Oh, I should have messaged you. I've only watched 4 episodes and I'm already
Yeah, but the thing is, I started with 2 episodes and immediately threw it away. I don't know. It's simply from the first 2 episodes, it didn't catch me. I don't know. Perhaps I wasn't in the right mood for it, but
it gets better.
Hopefully.
I'm only 4 in, but the first 2 were a bit fuck this.
Yeah, but it's always, this is kind of Dragon Ball, where it's just a story about their lives, what is going on in cities, and it's always that boring stuff. But yeah, but anyway, there is a dubbed version of it already.
Wow, I'm going to have to get that off you. And any of the listeners will now think that I'm 12 years old. Charlotte's my, I don't know, my mum who's gone away for
for St. Patty's.
St. Patrick's, and I've stayed in to watch Dragon Ball Z, which isn't the fact. But yeah, that's what I did. How about yourself?
You mean yesterday? Or?
Yeah, well, yesterday. Yeah, or just in general.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day isn't a big deal here in Germany.
It's huge in it's bigger than, we have St. George's Day, which is English Day in a sense, but St. Patrick's is 20 times as large.
Yeah, and I heard from people who are located in Australia that they are celebrating it there. And then, of course, in the US,
it's huge in America.
But that makes sense. I mean, when you take a look at the history, when there was this big famine in Ireland, exactly, the potato famine, they all moved over to the US, so it's absolutely normal that it's that big over there. But I don't know if there are many Irish people in Germany, but I could imagine that, as always, Germany is just lagging behind, and at some point it just sweeps over here as a trend. Yeah. Something like Halloween, for example.
Yeah.
Or what else is there? Something like Super Bowl, for example. Okay. People didn't celebrate the Super Bowl a couple of years back, and now it's becoming more of a big deal. But it's just this Americanization, if you want to call it that, right? But yeah, nothing really happened for me over the past weeks. It's just still bugging me with the back. Still trying to figure out what is going on there. I need to make sure to book a consultation with Quinn over the next couple of weeks, because it's that time. I think we've checked in January.
Right.
And I think it's a good time now to actually check in with each other to see, okay, there was enough time in between to actually get an idea of what might be the cause. I could actually imagine that perhaps it's my right trap, because do you remember the time when I did my contest prep, when I did my physique shots, that one of my shoulders was always hanging way higher?
I was just going to bring that up, but I wonder if it's related.
Yeah, it could be. And I don't know. It's so weird because there are so many small muscle groups in your upper back and around your neck area, which are all kind of into each other, right? And it's complicated to actually find the root cause of it. And potentially it's not only one single cause, but potentially even a couple of things. So it's just like, I don't know. It's so frustrating, and this is kind of the thing, what is going on right now in terms of training and stuff like that for me. And the cut is about to start.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's that time. I mean, let's be real. I've been gaining since like last year, June.
Not the best. You threw in a few mini cuts, didn't you?
Yeah, but never like really consistent with them, because I was never in a good spot to actually be consistent and go through with it. And thus I decided also to not do a mini cut this time.
Okay, slower.
Take a slower approach to it, so that I'm potentially still able to progress in the gym, because I'm coming from a good place. I have a higher body fat percentage, and I should be able to still increase my performance in the gym. And I decided to then do a 14-week cut, going into the Australian tour, because I'm visiting our man Jacob.
You want to be shredded for that.
in Melbourne. Yeah, but it's winter time during that time. So in June this year, I'm going to Australia after my graduation from my evening school for the conference Jacob is hosting there. And afterwards, I'm going up to Cairns. And Cairns is known for the Great Barrier Reef and stuff. So there, in that time frame, I would simply want to look presentable to some extent, right?
It's not like Revive Stronger now, so
man, I mean, I don't give a fuck about how I look like at a beach, because I still look, okay, that sounds really narcissistic, but I would still look better than 95% of the people in terms of the physique, right? But
maybe not in Australia. They're all kilos.
That's true. But it's not Florida or the Copacabana. But yeah, I think it's an appropriate time to do a cut right now, and why not then do it leading into Australia, and then give your body also the break while you're in Australia, because we are then hosting our seminars in the UK afterwards, and then I want to wing it, and not really wing it, but take a more flexible, more not so rigid approach. Why not do it afterwards then, right?
And it makes sense as well, because you're getting, I mean, we're nowhere near 2019 yet, but you do want to be at, when we've talked about kind of setting yourself up for success, you want to be at that lower end of your set point going into a contest prep, really. You don't want to be starting off really, like, imagine if you had to start from here.
And this is what I thought as well. I've been gaining for such a long time now. Not the best gaining phase I've ever had, I think, because sometimes I had like little ups and downs where I wasn't as consistent as I could have been. So I'm not 100% satisfied, but still I take something away from it. Still I learned something from that phase, but I've been in a gaining phase for such a long time now. And I would like to prepare myself slowly for 2019, and thus I would call it the diet before the diet, actually. And with 14 weeks of diet, I can, with my current body composition, I can easily strip away lots of fluff. So I would actually aim for something like 10 kilograms over 14 weeks, and this is definitely achievable with my current body composition.
You best be getting starting photos and stuff for yourself, at least.
Yeah, totally.
That would be exciting, because I don't know about you. Well, actually, I don't really want to get into the topic already, but it kind of is breaching into that area where we were going to talk about kind of how to track your progress and ways of staying accountable and just different approaches to your off season in terms of kind of sharing elements of your physique or not. And something I have been guilty of in the past, I think, is not taking like proper progress photos in my off season. Like I'll do it in contest prep, easy, but in my off season I'm just like, man, like I don't look that different, I'm just bigger. But it's always good to have those photos every month just to look back on at least.
Absolutely. But I must admit I'm so bad at it as well.
I was gonna say, I bet you're bad.
Yeah, but it's funny because I think a month ago or something, Sammy, so a friend of mine, actually asked me for physique shots, whether I could share them with her. And I was just saying, yeah, I need to take some over the next couple of days. Never did. God. And I hate it because this is something we require from our clients as well, because it always gives you an idea of how things are moving, because the numbers on a spreadsheet can tell you only so much, right? But potentially, because you see yourself on a day-to-day basis, you don't see the visual changes in an acute sense. And then taking shots every single month in a gaining phase, I think every single month is absolutely fine, is still a good thing to do because it's another tool of tracking your progress. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I try to find a justification on why I'm not doing it, but there isn't actually. It's just a bad excuse.
It's actually, I don't know what it is. It's easy to put it off. Like there's no, because it's like, what do you lose if you don't do it? In the short term, you don't really think of anything. Like this morning, I was like, I've got time, and this morning I did mine. So I recorded my physique update, which no doubt I'll show to you, and I'll probably share out on social media at some point as well. And I did like my measurements and everything like that. And like, it's at the time, I'm like, oh, this doesn't, like, these aren't that accurate. It's a bit of a ball ache. Like, it doesn't seem like it's like useful. But then looking at it, I'm like, actually, this has been quite useful. Like, I've looked at this and, my waist has stayed pretty much the same, but I've seen increases here. It's like, even if they are a bit inaccurate, at least like I know that's roughly like where I want things to be going. And actually we've because we coach a lot of coaches, and a lot of the people I've got who are coaches themselves, they're like, oh, one of the massive benefits of having a coach is because they make you do these things that you never want to do.
Absolutely. And I think potentially this is the explanation behind it. I mean, we are people, I would at least say that from us, that we are kind of robots in a sense, that we like to have the structure, we like to have plans out and stuff like that. So I can't really explain why we are not doing it on a regular basis, or why it's becoming harder for us in the off season to actually stick with that. But it's like you said, I mean, when having these tools at hand, you can always compare yourself with the prior month, or you can actually also make adjustments more in an acute fashion, even though that there will always be some fluctuations. And one physique shot doesn't really tell you what is really going on. But if you just theoretically say, because we see it with a lot of people, and myself included, that my head sometimes gets in the way of a proper gaining phase. And sometimes it could actually help you staying accountable for yourself and staying on track and consistent with the gaining phase, instead of always going from a cut into a gaining phase and then from a gaining phase into a cut. Potentially, if you do those kind of physique shots for yourself, you can have a objective look, even though it will always be a little bit biased from your end emotionally, but you can have a look at it and say, okay, let's try to put on the coaching hat and let's see really truthfully what is going on.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because I hope it's not for some people who don't do it. And I don't know if, I wonder if I think I've been guilty of this in the past, in that ignorance is bliss. So like, you don't take your photos, you don't take your measurements because you're like, I'm not sure they're going to look that good, so I'm just not going to look at them, and I'm just going to go on gym performance and how I like eating. That's what I hope. I think some dreamer bulks and some like dirty bulks can get a bit too dirty because people are just like, oh, I'm bulking, it doesn't matter, like I'll just keep going, and they're like, oh, I need to just fall in love with the process, which is completely true. And like I think that is part of it, like is just ignoring the day-to-day fluctuations and how you're looking on a weekly basis. But I still think having these like markers every month, like actually being like objectively, has your bench press improved, has your squat improved, like has this improved, what's your physique looking like? Because I think we've spoken about it before, and this is sometimes I think where I think a lot of people discount having coaches in the off season. But if you don't have time to look after yourself and you not look after your own programming, well, the off season is where you make all your gains. It's then during your contest prep or fat loss phases where you clean them up and show them. And that's much easier because you're just motivated by the weekly mirror changes. You're not looking for performance increases in the gym, really. You're just looking for like almost maintenance, or you're not so much worried about that. You're not actually gaining muscle, it's losing the fat, which is a much easier and more, obvious process that's happening. It's not like as you get more advanced, fat loss comes harder. If anything, it gets easier. Whereas when you get more advanced, like actually gain and knowing you're gaining muscle is harder to know. So I think actually taking time to assess your program, look over your mesocycles over kind of periods of time and really analyzing it is something I'm definitely guilty of not doing enough for myself, and something I want to be doing more, and something I might have to outsource because I think it's mechanics. They always have like a beat up car, like they just don't look after it. Like hairdressers often have like shitty hair because they just don't look after it, or something along those lines.
Yeah, people come to me for relationship advice, and I've never been in a relationship. No, I've been in a relationship, but I'm never right now. But yeah, definitely. No, and you brought up a really interesting point, which made me think, and perhaps I have to be absolutely honest with myself, because I fell into that trap as well. And that is that you are not taking physique shots or stepping on the scale because you know that you pushed it a little bit too far, or you had too loose of an approach or flexible approach to your nutrition, and you know that you could have been more on track with everything, and thus you're then more so driven towards not tracking these variables because you know that they won't turn out the way you would like to.
Yeah, I can see that. It's really tricky. There's like everything. There's not like a one way you must do it, because I've had clients who, if they weighed in frequently, especially in a gaining phase, if they ever saw a fluctuation that was like up quite high to what they usually do, and this happens very often during a gaining phase where you just get one freak high fluctuation, they're the type of person that just, if they saw that, they'd be like, I'm cutting calories back, like I'm eating too much, there's no way. And they keep doing this up and down, up and down, up and down, like to maintenance to surplus, even into slight deficits. And that definitely held them back. So whereas if I then got them to weigh in like once every month, it was kind of like that ignorance was bliss because they actually needed that. Whereas I think in situations where people are like, actually, I gain weight quite easily and I'm not worried, like it's more about controlling how fast that goes. Maybe knowing and seeing the daily weigh-ins and taking a weekly average is more important for that individual. It's really tricky though, because I think there's loads of there's experts out there, and we know like gaining around like 1 to 2% per month for most people is probably a good rate of gain. But I don't know about you, but I don't know if I've ever actually in my whole entire bulking career managed to exactly get the rate of gain I'm looking for. It's either been nothing or it's been loads more, and it's just like actually like the scale, as long as it's kind of trickling up, I'm not, now as I've been training much longer, I'm kind of enjoying that and knowing that as long as it's just going up, that's the main thing. Because I mean, I weighed 182 pounds this morning, and that is quite like, I got back from Mexico just about a month ago and I was 178 pounds. So that's 4 pounds above, and that's in 4 weeks. And to me, that seems like way too much. But when I actually look at my physique shots, the gym performance, all of my body measurements, it's not too much. So it's kind of, the scale is such a weird, it's a good tool, but it's just not a black and white tool at all.
Yeah, no, totally. And the thing is that now you brought up the point about if I ever had a time frame where I've gained the amount of weight I was actually aiming for. And I think there was only one time, but really back in the days. And the thing is, I was training for powerlifting. And in the end, I think that I didn't gain as much muscle mass, even though I had the rate of weight gain that is recommended, right? So this also needs to be in the head of the people, that P ratio plays a role in that as well. So how effectively are you actually gaining muscle mass to fat mass in that ratio, which can always be different even for individuals themselves, because when we take a look at studies, for example, when it comes to sleep deprivation and fat loss, right, that the ratio of lean body mass loss versus fat loss is actually favored into the lean body mass, or that the ratio is a little bit screwed when you are sleep deprived. But when you get sufficient amount of sleep, you're losing fat way more effectively rather than a lean body mass. Perhaps it's the same when it comes to actually gaining. When everything is going well in your life, your stress management, your fatigue management is going properly, you have your training nailed down, your nutrition nailed down, then sticking to those numbers might be that you are undershooting yourself. And potentially sometimes you are actually wanting to gain, but everything is in your life is just like piss, right? So you have so much stress in your life. You are, I don't know, perhaps there's something going on in your family. Your boss is pestering you. Then sticking to a rate gain of, let's say, I don't know, 0.5% per week of weight gain per week or something, could potentially be that you're nearly gaining all the fluff, but really little to non-muscle mass at all. I mean, there will always probably be some muscle gain as long as you're properly resistance training, but even in individuals, this will vary quite significantly, and thus I think, I don't know, taking it more like in a intuitive way or auto-regulative way is, I think, a better approach. And this is quite funny because I see it with a couple of clients of mine when it comes to the rate of weight loss or rate of weight gain. Then the question arises, am I losing too quickly? Am I losing muscle mass because of that? Not necessarily. It could potentially be that everything in your life is perfect. Right now, you are losing way more fat mass because everything is going so well for you. But on the other hand, it could potentially be when the question arises that, I seen that spike in weight last week. Am I gaining too quickly, and am I gaining too quick of fat, or do I have too much fat accumulation in my gaining phase? Not necessarily as well, right? It always is context dependent, and thus I think this is then where a team is really a good idea, to have someone at your side who takes a look at the data in an objective kind of manner, and thus makes the appropriate adjustments to the training program. This can be really hard when you're doing it yourself.
Man, you literally, I've got like, my hair's like standing on end because of such cool, like just insanely good points you made there. Like insanely. These are the things people do not even, this is fucking coaching. This is why something like, and I don't want to, it's definitely not a bad thing, but like Avatar Nutrition, it's just one I know where it's like, it's not coaching you, it's just inputting, you input data, it outputs data. It doesn't know what's going on in your life. It doesn't know all these variables. It doesn't know how you feel. It isn't talking to you and understanding that kind of you've just had a child and your gym performance isn't going well. You've stagnated in the gym for many weeks and you haven't got any pumps. So probably now isn't a time to start, like, continue massing. It's just invaluable, because I think a lot of people they either hold themselves back and they don't gain as much muscle as they could because they're like, no, I can't gain that much, I have to pull back. Other people, they try and push through like lifting plateaus, like maybe they've been massing like a year and they're like, no, more maxing time's better. So they keep going. They try and keep pushing up volume, but they're just like, they get into the gym, everything kind of aches, everything kind of hurts. They're pushing up scale weight still. And they're just literally, like you said, just gaining fat because their body's not receptive to gaining muscle anymore. But they're like, but I'm still under 15% body fat. I'm like, if I'm training in the hypertrophy rep range and I'm in a small surplus, surely every bit of weight I'm gaining is like lean gains. It's just like, no, not necessarily. And this is great because as coaches, we've experienced this with clients where I've totally seen it where people have been like, I've seen people not losing on the scale as fast as we'd like, and they feel like crap. They look a lot leaner, and it's like, we don't need to push harder. Like the scale is not telling us the right information there. And other people, they're losing stupidly fast on the scale, and it's just like, we could pull back, but you know what? You're reporting how good you feel. Your gym performance is going in a really good direction. Why would we slow down that process when the body is, like you said, kind of, you're getting that intuitive, that auto-regulatory kind of approach? Like, that's all fantastic. And the same with massing. Like, I've had clients who have kind of said, like, I know I've gained 2 pounds the last 2 weeks, like 4 pounds in 2 weeks. That's way too much weight, really, when you think about it. But they're like, just trust me, Steve, like I do not look bad for it. Gym performance is going up really good. I'm absolutely fine continuing to gain at this rate. And like, I'm like, yeah, it will probably slow down. And it does normally. It's just like that intuitive and that coaching, that is the element of coaching that, like, and that's the value of having a coach or a team or someone to talk to, so you can get more kind of objectivity from all the data, not just relying on the scale, which all of us get kind of we put too much value into the scale, I think.
No, totally. And this brings me to the next point I wanted to ask you, because over the past couple of weeks, you said it yourself that over 4 weeks now, you gained 4 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How is it for you mentally? Because I know that you're coming from a place where you've always been a little bit fat phobic. You had a hard time to push it. And I know that we've talked in the past about that you wanted to push it to 180 or always stayed at 180 and then pulled back or something. And we've talked about it, that I said to you, Steve, you can actually, with your looks right now, you can actually push it up to 190 and still look good. Yeah,
I mean, it's really weird. I don't know whether it's just maturity within... And a better, I think it's a combination of maturity and a better knowledge base of kind of gaining and understanding that fat loss is really quite fast. And like having gone through 2 contest preps, and I mean, I don't find losing, like getting lean, I get shredded, like I can get shredded. I know I can. And this, particularly this time round, it wasn't that hard, like at all. Like for the majority of it, the depletion weeks, I actually watched one of my depletion vlogs the other day and I was like, fucking hell, Steve, why the fuck did you go through all of that? That was hell. But yeah, like I can do that. And I think it's like the experience has built my confidence in that manner. But I think largely at this point of time, I'm really focused on gym performance and how like every session I'm going in there and enjoying it, and like they're feeling like squats are feeling apart from that 200 kilo fail, which if you follow me on Instagram, which like Pascal said, most of you probably did, that was a fucking retarded mistake. Like I was so embarrassed by it because I filmed it because I was filming my potentiation sets and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I should share that. Like that's made me feel like I don't want to share it for me, but I think I should just because it is, I don't know, full disclosure, and like it makes people be aware of those sort of mistakes that can happen. But yeah, I'm much more focused on just how I'm progressing in the gym, and like in my mind, I'm like, I really need to build up my quads, my back needs to build up, and just really focused on training and how that's going more so than really how I'm looking, and embracing like filling out clothes and feeling a bit like thicker, and recently just noticing how like, I don't know, I'm back to feeling boiling all the time, which is quite, it's not very comfortable, but it's kind of like, I kind of know I'm pushing myself and putting my body into positions it doesn't want to go, and it hasn't been before. I actually think right now I'm probably sitting at the best body composition I've ever been in my life, which should happen. And that's exciting to me.
Nice. Really good to hear, mate, especially because you've come from a place where we both have been, where it's like that we are afraid of gaining or allowing ourselves to gain. And this is what I did for myself as well. every once in a while, of course, I get some doubts of pushing it further, but this is where I set myself a goal. I do, unfortunately, I have to say that I start this cut a little bit earlier than I intended to. Okay. I wanted to actually start it in 3 weeks from now. But I think that I am now at a point where I really don't feel comfortable anymore. And thus I wanted to actually get rid of it already. I mean, those 3 weeks won't make that much of a difference in terms of gaining, but in terms of cutting, it can. I mean, just let's say I lose like 0.7% of my body weight right now. That would lead to around 1.5 up to 2 kilograms in 2 to 3 weeks time, which would be amazing, right? And that can make a big change in your visual appearance. So I decided for myself to actually start that cut now, but I also allowed myself this time to actually push it a little bit further. And it was a tough one because you can always see it in my face, right? And this is the thing, you see yourself on a day-to-day basis. And it's funny because I'm sharing that now because this show is all about full disclosure, right? When I'm dating girls, for example, and we understand each other quite well, then I tell them about my concerns, right? I mean, about the thing that bothers me the most. And okay. This has nothing to do with me not being confident, but quite the contrary. I'm so confident with my personality that I'm willing to share this with the other person, that I have insecurities about my body image, right? So I don't see a weakness in sharing these informations with people around me, especially when you get along just fine. And it's funny because we had recently a Facebook post in our Facebook group about of someone who was asking about whether he should cut or no, what was it again?
I think it was something like he can't date unless he's under a certain percentage of body fat.
It was, at some point it was quite ridiculous, the discussion, but there were so many great points being made by the people in the group. And also this just reminded me of myself, where I'm just like, in the end, all the girls I dated so far never actually cared so much about it, unless you are a super fat, obese kind of guy and they are looking, or they expected someone who's lean and shredded or something. That won't make a big difference. It won't. And I mean, in the end, when they only care about your body image, they are not worth it unless you are looking for only a sexual relationship, right? And in that instant, it was just like I was talking with them about it, and they also said like, that's really not important. And I think that in a day and age where the pressure not only lies on females anymore when it comes to how to look in society, but also that males are under pressure nowadays, I think that many people overvalue how to look like on a day-to-day basis, what that actually means. There's still a difference, and I think that people are aware of that. One thing is commercial and how people look on Instagram or something, and how people look in reality. And of course, sometimes this gets mixed up, but I think when it comes to the interaction between two human beings or something, that it doesn't really matter anymore, right?
And the thing that is interesting to me, because I understand it completely, because as a bodybuilder, we're very narcissistic. It just is. It's a narcissistic sport. We're very focused on our body image. And I'm definitely more confident. I do get confidence when I feel like I'm looking good, but I think it's then embracing looking good in different ways. So like right now, I am confident because I'm like, I can wear this big shirt and I kind of look big in it. It's kind of like I get confidence from filling out stuff now, whereas actually when you're in contest prep shape, like you don't get any confidence when you're walking out on the street because I mean, unless you're topless, there's no confidence there. You're confident in the gym because you look shredded.
What a bro you must be to walk around in London shirtless all the time. Just
it's just the chavs walking down the street with Stella. But the thing, it's interesting because I think a lot of us do put this sort of, I need, like, if I'm going to go on dates and stuff, I want to look good. It's like, well, it's only until, like, if you've got them to a point where they're seeing you naked, you're in. They're not going to go, oh no, actually you're over 15% body fat. Laters. I'm not sleeping with you now. It's like, if you've got them that far, you're going to get what you wanted. And yeah, I think we have to derive confidence from other areas. It's just like in the off season, you focus on gym performance a little bit more than like how your physique's looking. Like, don't just drive how your physique's looking and get confidence from that. Get confidence from other areas. Like, you should try and get confidence from other areas.
Yeah, it's just like the discussion. It also opened my eyes, and also what helped me is quite funny because I discovered Thomas Moore over on YouTube. I find he's such a cool guy. And
is that Cycles TM?
Yeah, TM Cycles. Yeah. Go check him out on YouTube. I think, in my opinion, I never followed any kind of vlogger or something, and he's talking a lot about steroids, so really not my field of expertise or anything, well, I think I'm overly interested in, but he is such a cool guy. And what is funny is that, and this is, I don't even know how to explain it, but his confidence and his enjoyment in the sport kind of I took it upon myself as well whenever I watch a video of him, because he's simply just living the life he wants to live. He's enjoying the sport, not because he's becoming the best bodybuilder of all time, but he's trying his best to actually get there and trying all he can to actually become the best version of himself. And there are, of course, when you are a person who puts themselves out there, and especially in such controversial fields such as steroid use and stuff like that, you get a lot of haters as well, right? And he simply doesn't give a shit about it. And people are then commenting underneath his videos saying like, you don't even look like you're taking steroids and stuff, right? Which is kind of a quote unquote offensive way of saying that you look tiny when you take steroids, right? And he simply can't give a fuck about it, because all he wants to do is to do bodybuilding. He doesn't give a shit about then people being offensive to him or trying to take the enjoyment out of it. All he wants to do is focus on his own journey. And this just smitten upon me. And ever since I started watching his videos, and I actually watched all of his videos already, I'm like, fuck this. This makes me want to go out and just do the sport for myself, which is what bodybuilding is all about, basically. It is, unfortunately, that egoistic sport. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you are only focused on yourself. On the journey, of course, you get to know people, you walk the same journey, you meet each other at competitions, for example, but at the end of the day, you're doing it for yourself, right? And this just reminded me of, it doesn't really matter if I'm a little bit more fluffier in the off season, because when the time comes, I know I can strip off that fat, but I also want to enjoy the ride. And this is something I've forgotten to do every once in a while, especially like last year when I took a look too, potentially also I was too focused and too stubborn on the contest prep. And I lost a little bit the enjoyment of the entire thing, because I wanted it so badly. And then afterwards, when I didn't achieve it, I felt like a fraud. I did lose a little bit my fun in training, nutrition, tracking, all that kind of stuff. And now I'm getting slowly back and just enjoying the ride. And it's all right then to gain a little bit more fluff, as long as I can go into the gym and enjoy the training in the gym, because I have the energy for it and stuff. And as long as this is present, you will make progress.
Yeah, I mean, it might seem like we've gone off a bit bit off topic, but I don't think it is at all. Yeah, I actually don't think it is at all, because what we've been talking about is kind of how do you keep yourself progressing in the off season? How do you keep yourself accountable? Like different approaches to taking kind of physique shots and auto-regulating stuff. And you've brought in the element of how do you actually keep yourself consistently adhering to the big things that matter most, and that is enjoying it. And I think so many people kind of, maybe they convince themselves they're enjoying elements of it. And I've definitely done it in my off seasons before, where I've just thought I have to do certain things. Like I have to do this movement, like I have to squat or something, or I have to deadlift. It's like, if you hate those, fucking fuck them off. If you hate doing high carb, low fat, don't fucking do it. Do something that gets you in that calorie surplus, gets you eating enough protein. Because I found myself like, and I'm glad, because in the past I wouldn't have done this. Whereas I'm like, okay, my macros are this, this, and this. On the weekend, I'm seeing my sister, and we have to eat at a restaurant that only that does low fat, because I can't go over my fat macros. Whereas like, I'm just like, no, like what's going to keep me loving this sport for years upon years upon years, and that's the most important thing to keep consistent, is if I can go and have a pizza with her and I can fuck my fat macros off for one day, and that's not going to make a blind bit of difference in the long term. It's kind of what element, and like with you, like you said, with your training, like you have to enjoy it. And part of me right now, and part of the reason I'm finding it fine to like gain the weight, is because I'm like, I'm really enjoying like eating this much food. Like it feels really good to eat this much food. And like, I'm not obviously going to get into a point of which I'm just going overboard. Like there's bounds within there. If I was like actually like 190 now, I'd be like, fuck Steve, like you're just becoming obese. Like what are you doing? Slow down. But there's definitely like too tight of controls. It's just not worth, like, especially in your off season, like all of this flexibility just expands so much more. And the longer you have your off season for, the longer you're not kind of competing, the more flexible you can be. And I think people who are like rigid, like sure, you might be getting every duck in a row, you might be highly optimal, but how long can you keep that up for? And when are you going to break? And when that does break, what are you going to do? Because if you're going to just like go completely wild, as a lot of people do when they're like strict with their diet and stuff, like that doesn't breed longevity for me.
It's funny that you mention or bring up the calorie tracking, macro tracking thing, because I'm tracking since forever, and it was the first time that I actually took a way more flexible approach over the past month. And it's funny because you hear it from people who are in the sport since a long time, like the guys from Team 3DMJ preach it, that in the off season have a more flexible approach to macro tracking, or if you're skilled at it, go completely off tracking. Some people simply need that. I was always under the impression that I will never get to the point where I could do that, or where I need to do that to set myself up for future sanity. But this time it happened automatically. I needed to pull back my control a little this time to actually just relax a bit more, because I knew that the time will come where I need all my willpower and all my focus and control again. This is not only on a temporary basis, but in 2019, I'm planning to do a contest prep for 9 months, or even when I were to qualify for something, right, to then even go to 10 or 11 months, right? And I know that during that time, I would do whatever I need to do to actually get to my goals eventually. And there are always times where you need to do certain things that you probably don't enjoy that much, right? Let's just say some people, when they are on a contest prep, some people simply need to do 4-5 times a week cardio to actually get into stage condition. Is that enjoyable? Probably not, right? Especially not when there are people out there who don't even need to do any cardio at all to get to stage condition, right? But why would you then be too rigid in your off season, follow everything like overly rigidly, and burn yourself out eventually, potentially? I mean, I'm a big proponent of saying that control gives you flexibility, but this has to be built. This doesn't come overnight. And for us, for example, I can allow myself more flexibility because I've been doing it for such a long time, and for the first time I realized I need to allow myself also that flexibility to, also, I don't know if that's the right word even, but also live a life a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. No, I see that, and it's something I'm also in the camp of, like, control gives me flexibility. Like, I've got a stupid streak on my FitnessPal and everything, and but even, like, the fact I've logged in for that amount of time doesn't mean every single day has been as accurate as other days. Like, some days really not.
Totally.
Like, I might log in on Christmas Day. It doesn't mean I'm tracking everything on Christmas Day. But for sure, I mean, the time I might let myself just completely, like, maybe not weigh in, maybe not track at all, would be, and like just to actually be like a normal human almost for like a month, would be like at the end of my massing when I'm maybe at like 190 pounds and I'm just going to maintain for a month. And that would probably be the most freeing month. And it would probably be so freeing, I'd probably feel a bit anxious for the first week. But like, I think just experiencing that would be quite useful. And I think that does allow you to actually listen to your body a little bit more, because we're so often tinkering with things and measuring things and analyzing things that we sometimes don't listen to what the body's actually telling us. And it doesn't always tell you the right things, don't get me wrong, but I think if it's in a good, healthy, solid position, like it would be at, like, you've been gaining for however long, like you probably are. So no, it's very interesting. And I'm always interested talking to people who have been doing the sport for years, like Jeff Alberts. And I think he deserves a lot of respect and almost some credibility, like researchers do, because he's been in the sport for so long. Like, that in its own self is like a research project in like, how do you do this and live a life? And like, especially for us, because he has a wife who's not in the sport either. So that's similar for me and Charlotte. And like, he has kids, and he's an online coach. Like, he's literally me, but like, I don't know, like 20 years ahead of time. So that might be making him a bit older than what he is. I'm not actually sure. But Jeff won't listen to this anyway. But so it's just interesting to see, like, and listen to what he's putting out there, because for the young guys, like, they're probably looking at the other young guys who are doing it right now, but actually also look at what the old guys are telling you and the lessons they've learned. Not necessarily what they're doing now and how they're training and eating now, but what did they say they did in the past and which they didn't do, and what you can learn from them.
It's really interesting that you bring that up, because I wouldn't say that I'm old.
Yeah, you're not fuck.
Yeah. No, but the older I get, the more I come to realize that there's some truth to what the people in the past said. So the older generation, in that they were saying that how much would I love that I know the things that I know now in a younger version of myself. Right? There's the ratio over time. Your body isn't capable of what the body was able to do when you were younger, but your mind is capable of so much more things, and your knowledge is so far ahead of what you knew when you were younger. And this is, I think, personally, over the time, I came to realize that this is way more worth listening to the older generation who've been through a lot and who've experienced, not only looked at studies, but also went from anecdotal experiences, that there's so much value in that. Take someone like John Meadows, for example.
Yeah.
Yes, he is in the enhanced world, but he's also worked with, I don't know, hundreds naturals probably, and he's seen a lot, and not listening to someone like him would be foolish, especially because he is in that sport since such a long time. He himself, he says it, that he's never been genetically blessed in becoming a real good bodybuilder, but he did the work and effort and research to actually get where he is right now. And he is in that sport for such a long time because he took care of himself. Yep. He listened to his body, but also did the research and stuff like that. And we can take so much away from his experience listening to what he has to say. Of course, probably some things will be a little bit bro-ish, but some things will be so valuable you can't read in any textbook or anything like that. And instead of then looking at Instagram of the 20-year-old genetically blessed guys who are just naturally ripped and buying their training program or training book because they are the hot shit right now, rather take a look at the older generation, even though that this might not be so appealing to you or to the society in that regard. They have probably more valuable things to say and to share than the young guys who look amazing.
Yeah, I think that's made me, and anyone listening, if you do want this to happen, comment below. I think we should get John Meadows on the podcast. I'd love to interview John Meadows. That would be amazing.
I mean, I really did love that podcast episode with Jeff did.
I haven't listened to it yet.
Jeff Nippert did with him, because it was just like out of nowhere. I didn't expect anything like that. I listened to it and I was just blown away with all the things he said and how he actually explained it and this rationale behind things. Once again, certainly some things will be probably based around total personal experiences without any kind of research backing it up. But disregarding that, after 30 years, or I don't know how long he is in the game already, of experience in that field, training himself, being on the highest level, and also working with hundreds or even thousands of clients on the highest level. I mean, that would be foolish to disregard someone like that. It's the same when it comes to Boris Shaiko, for example.
Yes.
I mean, all he did wasn't on research in the past, but he created fucking hundreds of medalists in the powerlifting realm. He is he's without a doubt the greatest powerlifting coach of all time, and he actually did his own research with all the case studies he did, right? And but yes, it would be amazing to have someone like John Meadows on the podcast.
Just like lessons learned over his years and what he can recommend to younger guys coming up or something.
Totally.
That'd be cool. The only thing I'd add to that is the only time I would be careful with looking at these older guys is if they're ever kind of dogmatic in their approach, if it's kind of their way or the highway, when they're saying stuff like who was it who recently said to maximize ab development, all you need to do is 2 times a week hanging leg raises. It was
really?
Gregor Gallagher. He said if someone posted it in our group, like, to maximize your abdominal development, all you need to do is hanging leg raises twice a week. And like, you look at him doing them, he's not doing them very well. He's like training his hip flexors, swinging, not loads, like they're not that bad. And it's like, you look at him, you're like, you have good abs. Like this is, you sell your products on on the back of your physique because like he's genetically got he's got good shape, which is fair enough. But don't tell everyone I cannot maximize my ab genetics twice per week. Like my abs do not. So if someone like that who is more mature is then they're saying like, oh no, like you don't need to do any of that, just do this, and they're just selling what they did to get where they got, that's not appropriate. But if they're telling you kind of how they got to where they are and lessons you can take away from that, that's when it's really valuable.
And I mean, Eric, his new series over on the 3MJ. Are you? No. Hey yo. No.
Hey yo.
Was it Hey yo? Where he talks about anecdotes and research and how to actually make use of it yourself and analyze it, decipher what is actually worth to look at and what's not, to kind of critically think for yourself. And that is basically what you need to do. No matter who's saying what, no matter what kind of research you are seeing, no matter what kind of personal experience you're hearing, take the data, analyze it for yourself, and come up with your own conclusion. Just because, I don't know, a Mano Henselmans or Eric Helms says it doesn't mean that it's the gold standard and this is the way to do it, right? You can actually build your own opinion, and there are different views, different opinions, different studies, right? And you can do the job for yourself. And what I wanted to say, though, is with that series, Eric does a fantastic job in kind of teaching kind of teaching the people how to decipher between what is valuable anecdotal experience and what's not, and what you can take away from that yourself.
Cool. We've almost gone to an hour now, actually, somehow, after, again, not completely being sure what we were going to touch on, but I think we've developed this into an excellent conversation. I don't really know how to round it up, apart from kind of, I think a lot of what we've said is a combination of anecdote and also studies, in that we've talked about kind of when you're in your off season, find an approach that suits you. Don't just rely on one tool, like use that data, but also use kind of what you're observing, how you're feeling, and find an approach that's working for you. And if something isn't working, then really look at why, like try and assess that. Don't just be ignorant to what's going on. Do take some objective measures now and then, and you should have, and be flexible to a degree. Like, don't find an approach you enjoy during your off season as well, something that you're going to embrace and actually bangs the principles, the main things we need to get done, and then just embrace it and run with it.
Totally. And one more thing to add, because I think you summed it up quite well. Sometimes it's really helpful and beneficial to get a second or third opinion on everything. Perhaps even someone who's not involved in your progress at all, who doesn't know you, who just takes a look at everything. Get a consultation. There are plenty of coaches out there who offer simply consultations. Do something like that, because they will give you an honest feedback based on what they can currently see on the data itself. That can help, and I think it's always good to have someone on your side, actually.
Mm-hmm. No, completely. So we'll round it up there, guys. We mentioned a few links there, but if you do join the Revive Stronger Facebook group, and you kind of want any of those like requests in there, they've probably been shared in there at some point. And lots of the conversations we talked about have been in there, and we'd love you to join the community. So we'll leave it there for you guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.